Laurence Fishburne, you co-star on Blackish as Pops, and you're also a producer of the series. And it's currently in its fourth season right now. Has the experience of making the show changed over the years as all the cast and the writers and producers have really grown into these characters and this family dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, it's been wonderful. The most obvious thing is, we've watched the kids grow up before our eyes. And we continue to have fun and look for new ways to sort of address things,
Yeah, and those kids are such a big part of the show, and they have, really kind of gone through childhood and adolescence on the show. How have they grown as you've worked with them as actors in these roles?
They're wonderful. All of them are really talented. And it's just been a real kind of treat to just watch them. I was a child actor myself, so I know a little bit about what they're going through, but they all have really, really wonderful parents who have kept them grounded and are really looking out for their interests. And so it's just been really, really sweet to watch.
Has there been any particular advice from your own personal experience that you've been able to impart?
Yes, but it's just for them.
And the show, deals with a lot of topical issues in addition to the family dynamic. And this season actually started with one of, I think, the show's more ambitious episodes about Juneteenth, which is the holiday celebrating the abolition of slavery.
Right.
How did the idea and format for that whole episode come about?
You got me. I wasn't in the writer's room when it came about, but I was really, really excited by it. I will tell you that much.
Yeah. What was it like, shooting that episode? Did you learn things you didn't know? Was it emotional?
It was odd. we shot it in the middle of the summer, and it was blazing hot, is what I remember the most. But yeah, I knew most of the things that they talked about. I was aware of most of the stuff. It was just really, it was really moving to be a part of something like that, to be able to try and do something on that scale for the medium of television. It was really cool.
And your character in particular was, the center of another significant episode in which Pop celebrated his 65th birthday, which was, of course, about his history and the family's history, but also, in a very comedic way about Black life expectancy. How was it getting to explore Pops more in that episode and in that context?
It was great. It was great. I mean, the wonderful thing about our show is like you have all this sort of multi-generational kind of perspectives going on. So, it was nice that they dealt with Pops, turning 65. Like they also dealt with, it was that one episode, I can't remember, it was probably season 2 about, Pops not wanting to go to the doctor. All that stuff is really cool.
Yeah. And, it's there's one episode from this past spring that actually didn't end up airing. That was due to creative differences behind the scenes that were reported. It was about Dre. He was improvising a kind of bedtime story for Devontae, and it had political, social context to it. How much do you know, or how much can you say about the discussions that took place around that episode on set?
I can't really talk about that. I wasn't involved in the discussions. I'm in the episode, and I thought it was really powerful. Unfortunately, like you said, creative differences, blah, blah, blah. We weren't able to air it, but I hope that one day we will.
Yeah. In this spring, there's also been a really interesting storyline, a kind of a darker, heavier storyline that's showing kind of a rift between Rainbow and Dre. Their marriage is kind of hitting a rough patch. What has it been like exploring this kind of heavier aspect of this family and this more emotional aspect of these relationships?
I think with respect to a family show, I think it's a really interesting idea that they chose to explore it, because marriages do have rough patches, and people have to negotiate them. So I think it was a really smart idea.
And of course, the show kind of explores that sort of idea with Pops and his ex-wife Ruby. They of course had a very turbulent relationship, as we've heard detailed many times.
Yeah.
How is it sparring with Jennifer Lewis in those two roles?
I love Jennifer. I've been working with Jennifer for a long time. I mean, we first did our work together in a little movie called What's Love Got to Do with It, some 20 odd years ago. And I'm just a huge fan of hers. So, every time we suit up and we get ready to play, it's always fun.
Are there any aspects of that, that relationship and that history that we haven't gotten to see yet that you'd be excited to explore?
I'm not sure. I mean, we've gone to the well quite a bit on that one. I'm sure they'll, keep digging.
And how much would you say, we've seen so much of Pop's, of his history and his, his life and his raising of Dre. How much of that character has been inspired or influenced by real experiences for you or for the other writers and producers?
I think most of it has been inspired by Kenya Barris's experiences, and maybe some of the other writers in the room. But not so much my own personal experience.
And what's interesting about these characters is that, while the show is also dealing with kind of issues of race and how it informs these characters' lives, it's also about, the interconnection with class and how Pops is, came from a struggling background. And now his son is raising his kids in a more affluent situation. Yeah. What's it like exploring that kind of dichotomy just from one generation to the very next?
It's interesting. I mean, it's really, I think it's probably one of the things that gives us a kind of authenticity in terms of, who the Johnsons are and, what separates them and what brings them together.
Is there over the 4 seasons so far, has there been an episode or subject that the show's been able to tackle that you've been especially proud of, seeing unfold on the show?
A lot of them. I really loved the Hope episode. I loved the Juneteenth episode. I loved the episode about Diane having her menstrual cycle. I loved the episode about Bo having postpartum. I loved the episode with Junior and the talk. I mean, there's been many that I'm really very proud of.
And the oldest daughter in the Johnson family, played by Yara Shahidi, she went off to her own freeform series, Grownish, which you also produce. How involved are you on making day to day of that show, and is she really missed on the Blackish set?
I'm not that involved on the day to day. Yes, she is missed, but she's come in and out. So it's not like we don't get to see her at all anymore. And we're all very proud of her. I mean, Yara is an incredible person. I mean, she's, not just a gifted actress. She's, a very, very, very strong, very, very intelligent, and, really amazing human being. So
the show is, dealt with kind of issues that are currently relevant in the news and stuff like that, but it's not always addressed like directly,
No.
ripped from the headlines kind of stuff. But is it still a different experience? Start the show under an Obama presidency, and now does it feel different under kind of in the context of a Donald Trump era?
Well, I would have to say that the entire country must feel different, transitioning from President Obama to President Trump. And so, we can't escape that, can we?
Yeah, and you work on this show with, of course, Anthony Anderson, who plays Dre and is also a producer. What's it like working with him in those different capacities?
Anthony and I have known each other for more than 20 years, and when we got together to do this, we were very, very happy because we'd always had great affection for each other and always wanted to work together. And this just turns out to be, better than we could have imagined.
And a couple of years ago, in addition to Blackish, which is about the modern African American experience, you of course were featured in the remake of the Roots miniseries, where you played Alex Haley. Does that kind of give you like an added insight, sort of playing those two different ends of a similar cultural experience over history?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it was just, I was a young actor when the first Roots was done. And it was one of those things that I wish I had been a part of. So when I ran into Will Packer, who was the producer on this, reboot, I was like, hey, I know who I could play in your show. I think he was afraid I was going to say something stupid like Kunta Kinte, but I did say Alex. So.
And, is there anything that you're expecting for Pops in the episodes or seasons to come that you're looking forward to?
No, I don't have any expectations other than that they'll give me something that's funny to do. Yeah.
And have you the season finished shooting already?
Yes, we finished season 4, and we'll be, God willing, and the creek don't rise. We'll be into season 5 sometime at the end of the summer.
Now, before Blackish came around, and I think also, of course, coinciding partly with Blackish, you co-starred in another show with a huge fan following, Hannibal, which I think there are probably still petitions circulating to bring that show back. Is that something you'd ever be interested in doing if the opportunity ever arose?
I wouldn't turn it down. I mean, I'd want to know, Brian Fuller was involved, and Mads Mikkelsen and Hugh Dancy certainly. But yeah, I mean, if it came back around, I'd certainly take a look at it.
Is that something? Do people still recognize you for that, or mostly for Blackish these days?
Oh, my career has been so long. People recognize me for a lot of different things.
Well, I want to congratulate you on another season of Blackish, and fingers crossed for another one to come in the following year. And thank you so much for talking with me.
You're welcome.